Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Future of Law event with Legal Tech Lab and the Future Female. So I'm Sonja Vainio. I'm a student volunteer with the Legal Tech Lab within the University of Helsinki. And this is Anu Laitila with the Future Female. So welcome to the event. We have an interesting set of talks ahead of us tonight, and then we'll have a panel in the end. And I'd like to go through some technical and practical stuff before I let Anu speak for the Future Female. So first of all, there's the photographer, if you didn't notice. So if you do not want to be included in any pictures, please do let him know so he'll take you off of them. Anything else? The bathrooms downstairs if someone gets lost. And then there's drinks and some snacks after the talks by there, so by the corner. So that's about it. Anna will first tell you about Future Female, and then we'll have Riikka to tell you a bit more about the Legal Tech Lab. So thank you.
So hello everyone and welcome, and also happy Women's Day for everyone. Before I introduce Future Female, I would like to introduce our team today. There is Maija, who was there by the door, checking us in. And then we have two founders here today. Where is Annikki and Krista? There they are. So we have been organizing events around a year and a half, but our Future Female was actually founded already in 2010. And what are we all about? We organize events for ladies who are interested about all things digital and people who like technologies. And we try to find topics where we have been going through a future of a space. We went through future of banking. Then we have been helping some startup founders and how they can actually get involved in business. And now, today, we found a great partner from Legal Tech Lab and Dottir and Fondia. But after all, I think we need to start, and we have fantastic topics today, and please welcome.
So Riikka Koulu with the Legal Tech Lab.
Hello everyone, and happy Ladies' Day also on my behalf. So, let's get started. So my name is Riikka Koulu. I'm an assistant professor on law and digitalization here at the law faculty. And I also have the privilege of being the director of the Legal Tech Lab. And you see a lot of people wearing the same shirt than I am, and that is our wonderful Legal Tech Lab crew who are behind most of the events that we're doing. So today, what I wanted to share with you was that first I wanted to tell you a couple of words about what is actually legal tech, trying to give you some pointers to make the distinction between the hype and the reality of what is legal tech. Then I wanted to address the potential and the pitfalls associated with implementing technology into legal services and into the legal system in general. Then I wanted to tell you a bit about the Legal Tech Lab, what we do, and how we will save the future of law. And then I'll finish with the idea of what we think are the next steps forward. I have a bit of a challenging title of a roadmap to user-friendly law 2.0, but I guess that we ladies often downplay our ambition, so that's one of the reasons why I decided to go big on this and say that we're gonna save law, instead of saying that, oh, we'll tinker with law a bit and see if something nice comes out of it. So let's get started. First, what is legal tech? Legal tech originally referred to software and technological solutions developed to law firms, but since then, it has expanded the definition, and it now includes a lot of different applications, and basically you see this word being used interchangeably with any technological solution that somehow is connected with legal services or something that has the word law in it. But from legal tech, we should also distinguish dispute resolution technology, which are the applications that benefit conflict management in its different forms. My own background is actually in procedural law and in disputes and in conflicts. So from my very subjective position, actually all legal tech looks like dispute resolution technology. But still from dispute resolution technology, there's a separate tradition that addresses the challenges of courtroom technology. And you can see that all these different sectors, from the law firms to the public courts, these are very different use cases, and that actually affects quite a lot their design and implementation. But that's kind of like the 101 on legal tech. But beyond this, legal tech has a lot to do with hype. A lot of people would actually say that it's a bubble waiting to be burst. And that's something that I think we're going to address today in different comments and in the panel we're having. But actually, hype is a complex issue because hype translates into services, but it translates into services relatively slow. And that is something that we've seen in the field already for quite a long time. There's a lot of startups, especially in Helsinki, but only a handful of those are legal tech startups. Why is this? Because law is a very specific sector to build a startup on or to start designing software for, because legal services and how law is done is always regulated by law and different types of law. So regulation always frames and limits also what software can be introduced. But slowly but surely we're getting there, and we're coming closer to the digitalization of the legal system. This is something I borrowed from the Legal Geek, which is a big UK conference for legal tech startups. And I basically took this here because it shows the variety of different startups and different services that are now very topical to the development of different types of ideas that deal with legal tech. This is an international one, but here's a Finnish one. So one of the things that we did at the Legal Tech Lab is that we organized together with the Finnish Legal Tech Forum, whose chairperson Anna is gonna participate in the panel. We organized a slush side event last year, and we asked Finnish legal tech startups to come and pitch their ideas. And these are some of the startups that then presented their work, and a couple of words of explanation what they're actually doing. But the reality. So we have contract automation, we have compliance, we are talking about algorithms replacing lawyers and legal work becoming extinct. But the reality is that most of the softwares used by lawyers in their different professions are very simple technological solutions. Google is the most important legal tech application ever. One could say email is another one. And lawyers are really obsessed with using Microsoft Word instead of any other text management software. And here you can see what is the huge gap between the hype, on the other hand, and the reality. And the question that really intrigues me is, how do we get from the hype and the reality? What is the middle road? Where do we find the actual solution? But so, then I wanted to give you a couple of examples, concrete examples, what's out there. This is one of the examples I use quite a lot. It's a chatbot solution for contesting parking tickets, developed by a 19-year-old programmer student who got a lot of parking tickets and then learned how to contest them. Then his friends started asking him, how do you do this? How do you get rid of your parking tickets? And he decided that instead of answering all of these people separately, he's gonna design a very simple chatbot solution with no intelligence inside, which will then help people contest their parking tickets. What is wonderful about this software is that when it first came to App Store, during the first 3 months, over 250,000 parking tickets in New York and in London were contested through the app. And the chatbot actually won 60% of the cases. So it's still better than just like taking a hunch. What is cool about this example is that it's developed by an outsider of existing legal services, and it solves a problem that nobody saw as an actual problem. There has been a way to contest parking tickets also before, but this made it really a lot simpler, and it's a scalable solution. So without adding extra costs, you can easily duplicate it to wider audiences. Now they have expanded beyond parking tickets and tried different types of chatbots, but kind of like this idea of using chatbots for law, it has been very much trending during last 5 years or so, but I think it's not as topical anymore as it used to be. Now it seems to be all about AI. Then another example of legal tech by my definition, and we don't often think about our online database for Finnish legislation as legal tech. But if we start thinking that it's a magnificent way of people, without any cost, accessing all the legislation, then suddenly it starts to look very different than it used to. Also, Finland was a forerunner in this field. So Finlex has existed already in 1990s, and that was one of the first in the world. My next example is online dispute resolution, and this is a photo from the EU's ODR platform, which was developed originally for e-commerce disputes, with the idea that if we have people buying really cheap items online, and there being some problem in the commerce, then we should solve those online instead of burdening the courts, because if you bought something for 20 euros, you're not going to go to the court, especially if the company you bought it from is somewhere else than in Finland. Interesting thing about ODR and online dispute resolution is that despite a lot of regulative support and despite the EU's ODR regulation, people haven't really found this application. So the platform has been there since early 2016, but still there's really a very low number of cases there. So this got me into thinking, what's wrong when lawyers start planning perfect solutions, making use of technology, and then somehow the solutions still don't find their audience? And my last example, which has caused a lot of discussions on black box algorithms, is the North Point Compass software used by the US courts in criminal cases to assess the risk of a criminal case defendant renewing their crime in the future. In the US courts, this affects the length of the sentence, so that's why it's done at that stage. And the judges base their decision on the sentence on the risk of recidivism. However, it's a black box algorithm, so we know what goes in, we see what comes out, a percentage of the risk, but we don't really know what happens in between. And there is the probability, and in this case, it actually exists, that the software takes in something and uses it for its output, that it's not actually acceptable from the legal perspective. So in this case, it was gender, and in other cases, it has been ethnicity. But this brings to the forefront the danger of data-driven technologies in our field. And it also makes us question, what is the role of lawyers in the future? So how can we make sure that judges and lawyers using such technologies, how do they actually know how they work, and how can they take these possibilities into consideration? And basically, how do we safeguard access to justice? That's basically always the question that I'm asking when we're talking about legal tech. That's about legal tech and examples, and then a couple of words about Legal Tech Lab. It's hard to define what Legal Tech Lab is, and that's partly planned, actually, because we don't want to set it in stone, because the idea is that this is a new initiative that brings something new to the law faculty and to the university and to the legal field in general. So we are introducing new working methods, new ideas of organizing and talking about legal tech and law and digitalization. And those methods are all the time changing. And that's why it's really hard to say that the lab is this thing and it's going to be this thing until the next 20 years or so. But some pointers can be given. So the lab is a network of researchers and research projects. In addition to that, we do core method development. So we try to answer the big questions of how do we digitalize law in a responsible and sustainable way? How do we avoid the ethical implications that are linked with data-driven technologies, for example? And the third thing that we are is that we are a spearhead one-stop shop for external collaboration, both within the university and outside the university. And that's one of the reasons why we actually are doing this event together with Future Female. So we're trying to open up law into different perspectives and different working methods. And basically, this is the whole idea that I'm going for here. So when we look at the example, the last example of North Point Campus and data-driven technologies, we notice that it's not easy or straightforward to develop functional solutions for digitalization of law. It's not easy, and it's not something that lawyers can do alone, and it's not something that programmers can do alone or designers alone. So for me, it has become very much evident that this is a collaborative effort that we're doing here. And that's why we have the lab. That is a sandbox for collaboration and for testing new ideas and going forward from there. And that takes me to the objectives of our work as of now. So now we have recognized that there's basically three things that need our urgent attention. First of them is that we need to figure out what's going on, because it's not clear. There's so much, it's so disambiguous to start so ambiguous to start thinking about legal tech, because we can't even define what it is, much less we can define how the court systems should be digitalized or how could we improve people's access to legal information, for example. So the first step is to define what's going on. What is legal digitalization? Once we have that figured out, the next step is to start developing the best practices, to start paving the road towards responsible and sustainable digitalization that takes the ethical implications of legal technology seriously. And the third part is more along the sandbox idea. So to start experimenting with new technology tools and see what comes out of it, and kind of like having this trial and error attitude and having some fun while doing it. But there's one thing that we have done until now, which is basically a question of what should we be doing next. So recognizing what are urgent areas and kind of like how do we go forward from here. And we've recognized these 5 basic areas that need our urgent attention. And the idea is that we've formulated these as themes instead of fields of law. We lawyers usually like to think along terms of competition law, procedural law, contract law, administrative law, but that's not really facilitating any type of interdisciplinary discussions. So what we're trying out here is that if we start thematizing these differently, perhaps that makes it easier for the rest of the people to start talking with us, so that the lawyers don't keep on talking about technology just by themselves. We have a lot of research activities around these themes. And one of the idea of building a network is that everybody in the network can recognize the different areas they are working in. And these are, of course, overlapping and intersecting and doing all sorts of things. So it's a comprehensive framework for that. But we've done research on algorithmic fairness, and that's one of our key initiatives at the moment. So starting to address what algorithmic decision-making actually means, and what are the challenges there, and how do we safeguard access to justice in that context, especially if we start using algorithmic decision-making and delegating that judicial power more and more to automated software. So, like what comes out of that? That is the perspective that lawyers can provide to these conversations about technology, the perspective of ethics. Also, we are doing some work on use of data analytics in law, and that deals heavily with information and the concept of what should be the information used in data-driven technologies when they're applied within the legal system. And there, one of the key issues is that we need new concepts, new ways of starting to think about what is information. We don't have a legal concept of information, but suddenly, during the last couple of decades, information has become a very crucial and focal concept of technology development. So now it's time to start thinking about what are the different interests from the legal perspective that connect with this focal role of information. One of the things we've done in this field is that last autumn we did an empirical study on citizens' access to legal information. And we were there basically testing the idea that if we have Finlex, the legislative database, online for free, but people still go to Reddit or vauva.fi or Suomi24 to ask for legal advice, what can we do to narrow that divide? And that is the biggest promise I see in technology. And that is the claim I'm making here, basically. So if we find out ways of implementing this technology responsibly, there is the potential that we are actually making law better, that we can actually help people finding the information that they need, where they need it, when they need it, and in a format that they can understand. Because, for example, when you start reading the taxation acts online, I've had legal education for 15 years, and it's really hard for me too. So something is rotten there, and we need to fix that, and we need to do something about that right now, while at the same time being really cautious about the pitfalls. And then one of the things we are doing right now, actually in this event, as well as later on this spring, is to provide an overview of the profession, the legal profession, and how it is transforming, and what is the role of institutions later on. So how does technology challenge legal work as we know it, and how does it challenge the institutions we have established? A lot of those institutions and a lot of legal work has formed over the decades, over the centuries, pretty organically. And we've never really stopped to think that, hey, what would be a better way of doing this? So basically, when we talk about legal tech or digitalization of law, we're actually talking about three different things that connect here. So we are talking about the future of the legal profession and legal work, and this is where lawyers usually get terrified of, will robots replace us? Will we be without jobs? Will we end up penniless? Because lawyers like to think in those terms. But think about it, how wonderful idea it would be if we would get rid of all the stupid routine tasks and we would have a bit more free time and we could just focus on the more interesting tasks. But that is one of the things that we are discussing when we're talking about legal tech, the transformation of legal work. Another thing we're talking about is that how technology is challenging the existing concepts, principles, governance mechanisms, and everything else that have been established over centuries. One good example of this is that when we look at technologies such as the blockchain that is decentralized, our nation-state-based jurisdiction models, and hence a way of regulating and controlling disputes arising from such technologies, become relatively pointless because suddenly it's really hard to pinpoint where a decentralized thing actually is centralized in. And the third thing we're actually talking is how can we use technology to improve law? What is the potential for reinterpretations and renewing good things and getting rid of the bad things? But so, basically, my claim is that there is a lot of potential. And legal system as we know it is not designed for its end users, but instead it's designed for the institutions, for the lawyers. But it doesn't have to be that way. And there is a lot of potential, there's a lot of pitfalls, and the key lies in making the distinction between these two. And that is the pivotal role I see that the Legal Tech Lab is playing here. And that if we are able to answer that big question of distinguishing between these two, that is the road to responsible digitalization of law. I think understanding and admitting that we lawyers have a problem, it's the first necessary but often painful step towards recovery and healing. So I think it is time that we roll up our sleeves and get to work. And that work, one way of participating in that is to participate in the future events the Legal Tech Lab is doing. For example, in our June conference, which focuses on what is all this hype around artificial intelligence. So, thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Riikka. I think we can take questions later on, unless you want to answer them now.
If there are questions right now, sure, I'll answer them. Another option is that we wait until the panel. It's a sure way of asking a room full of people, are there any questions? Because then there's none.
Okay, cool. So let's do it after the panel. So that's easier for everyone. Okay, so this was Riikka. And next up, we have Johanna Rantanen, who is the co-founder of Dottir Attorneys and also Legal Design Summit, which is the biggest legal design event in the world. And Johanna is going to talk about the future of, what was it? Legal services. There's the future of lawyers as well. So, okay, cool. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to talk about legal design, and I realized that my talking notes were not that good. It is very well designed, but this is serious stuff, so I have serious notes. Yes. All right. I don't think my slides are showing. I need technical help. I'm just a lawyer. They are showing here, but not there. Great. My first slide. I have to say that these slides were not designed by me, but by our designer, Emma. That's why they look so nice. So this is what I'm going to talk about in 3 points. So this is a quite dramatic headline. I'm not usually this dramatic, but let's see how it goes. My name is Johanna, or Johanna, and I'm one of the co-founders of Dottir. And Dottir is a law firm. Dottir is founded 2 years ago by by me and a bunch of guys. And we work with technology law and IPR mostly. But Dottir, it also means daughter in Icelandic. And that is not a coincidence. Dottir is our daughter. And I hope, this sounds a bit megalomaniac, I suppose, but I hope that our daughter will take part in changing the world. At least changing the world of law. And I think that there is a major cultural and social change happening in the world of law right now. It may not be that obvious on the surface yet. On the surface, law firms and law firm culture seems quite conservative still. And the change I'm talking about, I think it's caused by both technology, like Riikka talked about, but also a shift in attitudes towards work and attitudes towards how lawyers see themselves, especially young lawyers, how they see their role in society and in business. And I'm going to steal this analogy from one of my colleagues, and I think he has stolen this analogy from some kind of a self-help book or something. But you remember in the 60s we had this TV show called The Jetsons. It was set in the future. It was telling the story about this family who were flying around in their flying cars in space. And the series, it featured all kinds of technology and apparatus from a imagined future. And the Jetsons were able actually to predict the future quite well. We're not flying around in flying cars yet, but a lot of the things were quite correct. It was 50 years ago, and technology has developed a lot since then. But what the Jetsons were not able to predict was actually the social changes that occurred after the 60s, and more specifically, how gender roles were going to change. And we see here Mrs. Jetson, she's using all her fancy space age technology for basically cleaning and household chores, because that's what women do actually. So I think that we as humans we tend to downplay the impact of cultural and social changes and overstate the impact of technology on what we do. It's easier to imagine technological development than social development. And there is a lot of hype right now, as Riikka said, around new technologies and AI, revolutionizing legal work, blockchain and robot lawyers. But I claim that the bigger change is actually going to be social and cultural. And this is an advertisement, actually. We launched a new brand on Monday. It's called Dot. And we use this brand for services that do not only consist of providing legal expertise to clients, but providing services that combine design and software development expertise with the legal expertise of our lawyers. Because I think that this is going to be the future of law. Collaboration, as Riikka actually already predicted. But yeah, don't get me wrong. I I love law. I know this sounds a bit pathetic, perhaps, but I like working as a lawyer. I think it suits my brain. I think like a lawyer. I don't know if it's taught or if I'm born with it, but still, I like being a lawyer. I don't know why, but it's quite nice. I don't want to downplay the importance of law and justice in society, of course, and I do not think that the amount of legal work is going to change, or that we're going to have less legal work in the future. I think quite the contrary, actually. The amount of regulation is increasing all the time and doesn't seem to stop. But even if I like working as a lawyer, even if I love law, I've always had this nagging, weird feeling in the back of my mind that is the work I do, is it really meaningful to clients? What's the point of drafting all these contracts all night? Is anyone ever even going to read what I write, even if it costs so much? And I think this nagging feeling in the back of my mind has been right. I think that the way we work as lawyers, it has to change. And the way the working methods we use and the way we build our law firms. This is not written by me. It's written by some technology lawyer in the United States, I suppose. But this could be written by me. I have written a lot of contracts like this. Actually, I have not done much else during the last 6 years than written contracts like this. But then, after founding Dottir 2 years ago, I actually had this revelation. This sounds like a terrible cliche, but I had this moment. I had written a contract for one of our clients, and it was a startup. We used to work a lot with startups, especially in the beginning of the firm's history. And I had written a shareholders agreement actually to one of our clients, and we were sitting in one of our meeting rooms, and the client, he was a quite young guy. He had founded his own company, and he was reading one of the clauses. It was a non-compete clause in the shareholders agreement. He kept reading it and asking me, does this mean this, or does this mean that? And I was like, no, it doesn't mean anything like that. And then I had to explain to him what the clause actually meant using normal human words. And of course, I mean, he hadn't read that much contracts before. He was quite young, and it was understandable. But it just struck me. I mean, isn't it quite absurd that the product I had sold him, he had paid money to me for that product. It was actually a very bad product. It was probably the most unusable product ever. He could not use the product he had bought from me. He could not use the product for what it was meant for. He didn't know what his rights and obligations were based on the contract text. But then, why do we lawyers work like this? Why do we make products like this? Why is the format that we use, the long text and the small print, why is it so terrible? Why do we insist on using this very complicated language? Well, I know why we do it. I've been doing it for my entire adult life, so of course I've had to explain to myself why I'm sitting in the dark all night long writing these long contracts. Because we are not drafting the contract to our client. We're not drafting the contract to any human being, actually. We are writing the contract for the court, because that's why we have been taught by our law school and our teachers and our superiors and our colleagues. In case there is a dispute about the contract I've written, and the piece of paper might end up on a judge's table, I want my client to win. I want the language that I have been using to be as precise and exact as possible. This is a quote by Donald Trump. I didn't want to write it there because this could be written by any one of us, any lawyer in history, including me. We love our words. There are winners and there are losers. That's how the lawyer mindset works. And a good contract, it's a contract that makes the client win a court dispute. It has to cover everything and be formed in a very sneaky way so that the opposing party does not realize that my client has actually covered every base possible. So I have never thought about the usability of my fantastic contracts. They cover everything. What is this usability thing? So I've only been thinking about what a hypothetical judge would say when he or she reads my contract. When in fact, the judge may never read the contract. Most contracts are never read by a judge, actually. And before it ends up on the judge's table, it's probably going to be read and used by a lot of people who are not, in fact, lawyers at all. And it's a very bad tool for this. And actually, in today's world, we make more contracts than ever, both as consumers and in business. And I claim that the world is too complex and regulated to actually be described using piles of paper as we lawyers do today. We do not have time to read and understand all contracts that we are parties to. And because the world is getting more fast-paced and complex and regulated, this has led to the fact that we, as lawyers, the way we work is not fit for the world anymore. It sounds awfully dramatic. We try to keep pace with our modern and fast-paced clients by working longer hours and writing even longer contracts to describe our complex and regulated reality. But the format, it doesn't work. The pile of paper does no longer work in our fast-paced and complex world. Our services are still too slow, too expensive, and often do not give the client what the client actually needs. And I claim that legal information and contracts, they are actually too important for not being read. They contain too much important information to be drafted in an unreadable format as they right now do. Actually took a cube of ice in my mouth. It's hard to speak. But the more complex the issue, the more usable the contract actually should be. I'm trying to digest this ice cube, sorry. So, yeah, the more complex the issue, the more usable the contract should be. A lot of my lawyer colleagues, especially the ones who are working in big business law firms, talk about legal design in a way that it's not needed for the most complex deals, because they are so complex that you cannot design those things, because the issue is so complicated that only a lawyer could understand what we're talking about. It's not true. Legal information is just like any complex technical information. It can be designed. Even if we lawyers cannot do it, it doesn't mean that it cannot be done. So what should we do with this problem of bad usability of legal work? Well, as Riikka said, this is a problem that cannot be solved by lawyers alone. I've tried drafting usable contracts, and the result is quite bad, to be honest. I mean, I cannot write understandable text. I mean, I'm a lost case. Law has destroyed me. I can only write really complicated sentences. I mean, it's sad, but that's how it goes. I mean, my brain has just been destroyed by all the contracts I've been writing in my dungeon. I cannot formulate text that is understandable, as absurd as it sounds. So we lawyers, we need help. And what we have been working with in our firm is creating new ways for lawyers to work. And that involves creating multidisciplinary teams and diverse teams with expertise that goes beyond just the pure legal expertise that we're selling our clients. We have been copying working methods from designers and software developers in order to create products that are more usable and fit for this world. Design is a field focusing on the user and the user's experience. And the user is not something that the law knows. We are not taught in law school about any users per se. We're talking about parties, but not the way the parties are using any legal product. That doesn't exist in legal doctrine. It's not a part of the law as a science. But I think it's time for lawyers to admit that the user, it matters. And we are not experts in knowing what the user wants. Lawyers usually think that we know everything for some weird reason. We know everything because we have been sitting in a dungeon reading a lot of books. But we do not know what the user wants. And we need to use expertise from other fields to know what the user wants. Then I like to emphasize that the world, it's not ready. I think that especially the field of law and law firms, it's in beta phase. I think this is just the beginning. Lawyers' working methods have not changed for, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 years. I don't know what I'm talking about, but still we have always been working in the same manner. And no one has been able to solve the usability problem of legal work yet. So it's up to all of us to make legal work better. And what it requires is simply demanding more from ourselves as lawyers, and if we are using lawyers from the lawyers we're using, we can actually do better than this. 20 years from now, when we're flying around in our flying cars, are we still going to be using piles of paper that have been written by a lawyer sitting alone in his dungeon? I don't think so. I really don't think so. And I think my most important point that I want to make is that we introduce the concept of a user to all work that we do as lawyers. And remember that the judge is not the only user of our contracts. And the pure legal quality of our work is not enough anymore. We need to team up with other fields to bring law to a next level. And I think that was all I want to say. Thank you.
So thank you, Johanna. And we actually can take questions now. We have a very cool mic that doesn't look like a mic if someone has a question for Johanna. And Johanna is also going to be at our panel at the end of the evening.
Any questions? Nothing?
Okay, so we can also talk after the panel.
Oh,
yes, great.
Okay, this is a bit weird, the whole is like this, but actually I don't have a question, but a comment that I really like this idea of legal design, and I have worked on public sector science. I graduated, so 6 years also now, and I find that this would be very useful also for like the whole public sector.
I fully agree. I fully agree. I have never worked for the public sector actually, so I didn't want to talk about the public sector. My perspective was very subjective since I've been working with law firms my entire career, but I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
I fully agree.
Any other questions?
Okay, then, so moving on. Thank you, Johanna.
Thank you.
Okay, so Johanna was talking a lot about this dungeon that lawyers work in. I'm sure Dottir's office doesn't look like a dungeon if any of you have been there. It's very nice.
I'm working in a dungeon quite often.
Yeah. So another office that hopefully doesn't look like a dungeon, and I know it doesn't, Fondia. So we have two legal counsels here. We have Nea Welling and we have Sini Moilander, who are going to talk about tomorrow's lawyers. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, works. Hey, welcome on behalf of us. My name is Nea Welling. I'm a legal counsel from Fondia. And I specialize in transactions, how wonderful is that, and corporate law. And what else am I? What happened?
Going too fast.
I'm going too fast. I have my background also in marketing and communications, and I'm actually our social media marketing law guru at the moment. I'm also a mother of 2 little monkeys, and because I'm so tall, I'm also a basketball coach and ex-captain of Team Finland.
Yeah, not gonna compete with that. I'm also a legal counsel from Fondia, also specialized like Riikka in dispute resolution and litigation. But maybe my biggest achievement so far in my professional career is that I've become Fondia's, well, self-proclaimed, but still DigiQueen, and I actually have people using this title of me inside Fondia. So if you come to Fondia, just ask for DigiQueen and you will get me. Outside of my professional life, I'm also a sports and food enthusiast, a good combination of both, so I don't get extra thin or extra fat. No. And then a dog owner. Don't have any monkeys, but I got a dog.
Monkeys are nice.
Monkeys are good.
But
Let's
buckle your seatbelt. Now we are going to the future, and also what's the future going to be like for us lawyers? So, if you don't know it yet, we are currently living the fourth industrial revolution. This is what happened many years ago. But of course, steam water, yes, nice mass production, electronics, first computers. And what's happening now? The scale and scope and the complexity, what's happening now, is something that we have never seen before. It's disrupting every industry throughout. And it's also disrupting, first time, the legal industry. The speed is historical, and we don't actually know where we're going to end up. And basically, there's happening lots of transformation at the moment. And there's also the fusion of technologies. Before, we have had quite separate different kind of matters like objects, humans, animals, plants, whatever. Now these are combining together. You're not seeing there's blurring lines between all of these matters that we have seen before. And we don't even know yet what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, so, well, I'm going to summarize this all to one word. The word is already been heard here today. It's digitalization. So we are living in an era of digitalization. What is interesting is that there is actually no official definition or all-inclusive definition of digitalization. What does it actually mean? For me, for myself, it's important to distinguish it from digitization. It's a different term. For me, digitization is the technology part. And now you will hear a lawyer repeating a phrase that she has learned by heart because it was too difficult to actually get a scope of it. But digitization is the conversion of analogs of analogical streams of information to digital bits. Yay. So technology. Digitalization, on the other hand, is the way this affects the way we work, the way we function, the work and functioning of people, businesses, and markets. So digitalization is much broader. It's not just technology, it's also the way it affects. I said there's no official definition of digitalization, but of course many definitions have been given. This is my personal favorite. It's by Gartner, it's from their IT glossary. It states that digitalization is the use of digital technologies, so the use of technologies, to change a business model and provide new revenue and value producing opportunities, so the use of technology to certain aim. It is the process of moving to a digital business, so huge transformation enabled by technologies. I also already said that I'm the self-proclaimed DigiQueen at Fondia. It's because of this. I'm the mother of so-called Fondia Digi research that we've been working on for a couple of years already. It's basically the aim of this project is to better understand the concrete effects of digitalization in different industries, the industries that we serve as lawyers, to understand where the companies that we serve are going to, where the industries are going, because we want to be able to give proactive legal advice to these companies so that we can help them before they find themselves in trouble. And to do that, we figured that we actually might need to know our customers better and also understand the industries in a broader meaning. So what we did is that we trained our own lawyers to talk to their customers, and sent them to ask a very simple question. What is their company interested in at the moment, and where are they going, and where are the industries going? And then we broaden it up a bit further. We realized that there might be some companies that are not our customers that might also have some interesting information. So now we've interviewed 3 companies per industry in 12 different industries in Finland. And with a wonderful team, I have my lovely colleague Sofia here today. We've been analyzing the results of these interviews that we've been doing. Yes, I mentioned your name. And these are the common nominators that we found from all the industries that we've interviewed so far. You might call these, or I call them, kind of the driving factors behind this change. You see there's customer centricity. So the concentration on customers, this is very much what Johanna was just talking about from a legal perspective. So the customers are growing more demanding. If they are using in one area or sector of their life a service that is very intuitive and easy to use, they want to be able to have the same experience in other sectors of their life, also in business. So they can compare and from internet read peer reviews, and based on those decide which service provider will they use. So the companies need to compete of the customers even more and build up these services that are easy to use and intuitive. The companies are moving from products to services. So the customers today, they want turnkey packages. They don't just want an easy service. They want it to be easy to acquire, easy to use, and easy to maintain. Easy to acquire basically means, well, deliver it to me at home. So the companies have started to build on add-on services to their products to be able to fulfill this desire. And the companies that cannot do this all by themselves, or it doesn't make sense for them to do this all by themselves, have found ways to work together with other companies so that there is a service chain where each company will deliver the part of the service that makes most sense to them. We see companies concentrating on agile and efficient processes. Well, this is kind of self-evident. It's cost efficiency. They need to be able to get the best return on investment for themselves and for the customers, to be interesting to the customers as well. And to be able to actually, well, know what the customers want, they're concentrating on data and data analytics. They need to know what their customers want, what kind of services do they use, where do they move, so they collect data. And then we see them also sharing data. The companies have understood that there is so much for them to do. It doesn't make sense that everybody is doing everything. They can share. They can share the knowledge. We see open source software. Companies using the work of others to kind of build up better services. And last but not least, the application of new technology is self-evident. This is the force, the driving factor behind all these others, so enabling them. So we've been discussing with the companies that we've interviewed different technologies. So far, we gather that from the different industries that we've talked to, the most interesting technologies to them at the moment, depending a bit on which industry we're talking about, are things like, well, blockchain was already mentioned, IoT, AI, VR, AR, did I forget something, machine learning. So very, very interesting technologies, completely new things to us lawyers, but very interesting. And that's the thing. This is not rocket science. This is pretty standard stuff that you see on this list. So you could ask, why did we go through the trouble of interviewing all these companies? But the interesting thing is, what are we as lawyers going to do with this information? What kind of legal advice do we give to these companies investing in these trends, looking into these trends and kind of investing in them? And then the question, all the industries are affected by these. What about legal industry? How will this affect legal industry? We are not immune to the change.
And that's basically what the statement is. We have been protected and we have been quite exclusive community. If you think about the path that we usually do, you pass the exam, then you go to university, you have the same students sitting in the same class, you see most of the people when you go to the law firm or in-house counsel, you say hi, hi, hi. So basically it's an exclusive club. And now that's changing. Basically, there's lots of startups at the moment creating new ways of creating model documents and templates that can be used, for example, globally soon. That basically, it's not that it's only law firms providing services. Soon it can be that it's not only Finnish lawyers practicing here in Finland. It can be international large law firms who are launching their own businesses in here because of course, the language of the world is now English. Of course, we have companies who use Finnish as their corporate language, but that's also changing. I think that most of the work that we are now doing, for example, me as a transaction lawyer, 90% English. How much Finnish? Not much. And that's basically my everyday life now. And other thing is also that what happens if we have to take in also other practitioners? Are we still going to think that, oh, there's the attorneys at law, and there's the judges, and then there's the in-house counsels? What is in the middle? Who has the right to practice this? Who has the right to be a lawyer in Finland? Of course, now we have the language barrier, but I'm sure that the new technologies are coming to Nordic languages as well. There is even now at the moment companies who are coding now Nordic languages, and they are starting to work. So we are not immune to all the change that is happening now globally. Of course, this is a market of 5 million people, but still, it's Finland.
Ooh. Yeah, for some reason I'm losing my voice also. Yeah, for some reason I'm unable to talk about digitalization without showing the picture of this guy, who is of course Richard Susskind. Or actually, I know why I'm unable to, or why cannot I just like skip him? It's because for the past 8 years I've been having a huge crush on him and to his son Daniel, which is a bit uncomfortable. They are both Scottish, in my defense. But already in 2008, Richard Susskind wrote this book called The End of Lawyers, ? And in that book, he's been writing several books after that, also together with his son Daniel, with the same idea. But the findings that he made in this book have persisted. So already in 2008, Richard Susskind kind of foresaw that the legal industry will be forced in the moment of crisis. We will be forced to change. And he identified 4 different pressurers that will drive us to this change. These pressurers were the pressure to lower costs, the pressure to work differently, the pressure to embrace technology, and the pressure to deregulate. After Susskind, or during these past years, so this was already 10 years ago, and after him, many other researchers and authors have found this, or have kind of reinforced these findings that Susskind had. This is from a 2016 report by Boston Consulting Group and Booker's Law School on legal technology, and they found that the changes in the market environment, or the current, in 2016, the business legal services were characterized by new nominatives like higher price pressure, deconstruction of formerly homogeneous legal services into different activities, and what Nea just mentioned, the rise of legal process outsourcing. On the other hand, another thing highly affecting the legal industry was the exponential increase of legal data. I do dispute resolution. Every time we give legal advice, we use more and more data. We need to go through more and more documents, papers, court law. There's a massive amount of data. So in this report in 2016, the authors of this report found that in the future, the ability to screen, analyze, and interpret massive amounts of data will be critical to the success of each law firm. So here, in order to secure their future competitiveness, law firms need to rethink core parts of their business model to capture the opportunities presented by legal technologies, much what was already discussed in the first presentation. This brings us back to what Susskind said already in 2008, the big question that he posed. When we embrace all these technologies, the question remains, what are the skills and capabilities of lawyers that cannot be replaced? What will the future profession of lawyers look like? What cannot be replaced by advanced systems or by less costly workers supported by technology or standard processes? In India, for example, lawyers in India, or by lay people, just common lay people, armed with online self-help tools. What will remain?
Looks a little bit scary number, isn't it? 30 or 50% of junior lawyer work will disappear. That's quite a lot. And 2016, Deloitte did the same kind of research, and it stated that 40% of lawyers' work may be replaced or automated in the coming decade. I know there's lots of students hearing this presentation, and basically what we're stating now is that don't panic, there will be jobs, but the jobs will be different that basically you have now seen. And also the career path that maybe you're going to be in is going to be different that you have seen previously. So it's not just like I start in a law firm, I be associate, then I'm going to be a senior associate, partner maybe. Okay, that's my career. It's not going to be like that. This is basically the main things that we are seeing now, that what are the future lawyers going to be like? We basically think that now in most of the law firms, for example, the organization looks like this. You have few partners, a couple of senior associates, then an army of associates. Probably the transformation is going to be that there's more going to be a flat organization. So basically experts working together, working in teams, and even non-lawyers, like Johanna stated, that it's not going to be just us lawyers sitting in the teams. What does that mean? We will have to have technical skills because we will have to learn the new technologies. Is it artificial intelligence? Some other technology? We are embracing those technologies and we are becoming better lawyers with those technologies, and we are giving better advice to our clients because the technologies help us. We're not making those mistakes if we have only, for example, our own eyes when we're doing review. We may be tired, we will need to eat, we will have to sleep. Computer program can, for example, do the due diligence on behalf of us. How nice it would be like that you don't have to sit 2 in the morning reading thousands of documents and writing a due diligence report. If the program can do it in 2 minutes, and what's left for us? Of course, that's the deeper analysis. We will have to know what basically the program is stating. What is the recommendation that we are giving to our client? It's, of course, you have a list of facts, but what does it mean actually in practice? How does it help our client to, for example, in their business? What is the risk assessment? What risk do they have? How they should go forward? And basically, we can concentrate on the demanding legal work, not just making an index list of documents, or this is the template and I'm now copy-pasting something in the middle. Of course, when we are working in teams, what should we, like basically skills do we need? Very good communication skills, social empathy, and also be international. It's quite likely that your team is international. Know other cultures, learn languages, and go abroad. And of course, how do you serve your clients? That's the key element. We should not be focusing on serving partners or serving the leaders that we have in our team. We should be focusing on providing excellent service to our client, and for this, they expressed interest. Then we're talking about robots. Would you like the experience that you would go to a courtroom and you would have a robot sitting behind the desk and stating that, okay, this is the case, this basically what happened, and here's your sentence? Probably not. And what about transaction negotiations? Would you like to have, if you have a multi-million transaction going on, do you want to have 2 robots negotiating on a deal? Probably not. So there's still going to be the human aspect. People want to have the possibility to tell their story to the judge. They will want to have the possibility to negotiate on their deal by themselves. And that's the point when you need negotiation skills and also leadership skills. How do you make your team to succeed in a difficult situation? And also, how do you learn to assign work? How basically you find the work-life balance in this field? Because new technologies, if we embrace it, we have the possibility to give away that stupid stuff. Can we also enjoy the life outside work and also find the work-life balance? And that's the main idea also, that do we have to be lawyers our whole life? If it makes us happy, can we be lawyer bakers, lawyer poets? And if it doesn't succeed as lawyers, or we will lose our job as a lawyer, can we become something else? And that's the importance, that basically we continue all the time that the learning curve, that basically when you're ready from law school, you can still learn something new. And that's that you have to be interested of the new technologies, and you basically have to have that thing that I want to learn more, because that's the key element that you're going to survive in this industry when the change is happening, that you're eager to know what's behind the corner, not just like standing in the box and waiting that this is how I've done this for 10 years and now I'm going to do this like 10 years forward, because that's past.
Now I think we have to wrap it up because she's coming on me. Just a quick ending slide. Just to finish, we all face an unclear future. Notwithstanding what's your profession, if you're a lawyer, if you're something else, none of us know what the industries are going to look like in the next 10 years. In the spirit of the International Women's Day, here's Anita Bori, the founder of the Institute for Women and Technology, giving us a very positive note on that. We are living in a time of change. These times require visionary thinking, visionary leadership, and luckily for us here, Future Female, this is something where we can bring something really valuable to the table. Thank you from both of us, and sorry for taking your time.
Cool, no worries. You know, in the Oscars they have... Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. They also have this in the Oscars, but in the Oscars they have like an orchestra that will start playing if you talk too long. So
I was coughing.
I did not have an orchestra, I'm very sorry. So, okay, for now we're going to have a panel with all the speakers and a couple of more people. So we'll just take a minute or two to do some interior decorating for now. Joo. Pystytkö sä? Okay, great. Thank you for your patience here. So we have our panelists. Let me just introduce them quickly. So you already met Riikka. Then we have Minttu Viitanen from Accenture. She's a client account lead over there. Then we have Anna Ronkainen, who's a co-founder of Trademark Now, which is a trademark startup that has been going on for quite a while, though, so I'm not sure if I can still use the term. But anyway, we have Anna, then we have the ladies from Fondia, and then we have Johanna. All right, so our team today was the future of law, which is really quite broad. So first of all, I'd like to talk about the topics that Johanna brought up in her presentation and also the Fondia presentation. So Johanna talked a lot about making legal information more understandable by legal design and the means of design. And as we talked, the world has the amount of regulation has gone up, and so does the amount of information in general. So as Sini said, the world is more complex than ever. So what's the role of lawyers in here? Because Johanna just said that the audience is not it's not the client or it's not other lawyers, but it's often the court. So where did lawyers come in on making information for the end users and the other citizens?
Should I start? So maybe I could shortly introduce myself also from my background, because I've been maybe many times also a token woman in my career, because I worked in technology, and quite often we do have situations that we have less women than men, but now I think I'm the token non-lawyer in the group. So I'm here to present I think I was happy to hear a lot about digitalization and technology, and I think basically my whole career has been about digitalization. I worked with clients in retail, in resources, and actually now the past 2 years in public sector, especially in public safety, and then citizen services area, and basically the work I do is digitalization, so transforming that through technology. And then when you asked about the user, now coming to the question, this user experience, I was thinking that the first 10 years of my career, we talked about users as well, and we were talking about user experience, but I think today I talk about a human experience. I think it's humans. We create services, we create the meaning for humans. And I think that is important. So kind of the shifting in thinking that it's technology that needed to evolve to bring humans into the center, which I think intrigues me.
Yeah, let me say a word of introduction as well. So I have a law degree, but I use it mostly as an excuse to tell lawyer jokes. So I think the question of what the role of lawyers is comparatively uninteresting, and really what's much more interesting and important, especially for I think this audience, is that the legal industry is in a dire need of people with backgrounds other than a law degree. So, for instance, something pretty basic like project management. It's this big new thing in the US and the UK, and it's basically unheard of in Finland, I think, in the legal industry. So there is a dire need of people with different backgrounds, like designers, for instance, but a lot of, say, production engineers and what have you. The big challenge is that about 97% of lawyers will deny that and violently protest if you suggest something like that. I'm sure that some part of the remaining 3% is in this room. So I think that's really the big challenge, I think, in this space.
So law is too important to be left for just lawyers.
Exactly.
That's your point.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Lawyers are terrible bosses.
Okay, any more lawyers?
Yeah, but on the other hand, according to the Bar Association rules, basically the only person capable of being a boss of a lawyer is another lawyer.
Indeed.
A bit like only a doctor can manage other doctors.
But I think I'm in desperate need of lawyers, and not because of dispute resolution, and our clients are in desperate need of lawyers. And I would say as a company, we are in desperate need of lawyers. And the reason is that actually, now I'm talking from the public sector point of view, it's the law that actually dictates what the public service does. It's that what makes the difference, how we act as a society. And when we are designing and helping our clients in the public sector, what we would need is that we would have more of lawyers in the team, bringing the legal thinking into the work. And that thought that if you're opening up lawyers' work for non-lawyers, I'm really opening up that technology consulting, for example, has a desperate need for lawyers, for legal.
For lawyers who understand technology and not just...
I need to actually just, hopefully it's not going to go outside this room, but I've been in technology consulting, and actually I'm not really that interested in technology. I'm interested in humans. I've always been, and I've done a quite successful career in technology consulting. So I think let's not overemphasize the technology part.
I use technology as a shorthand for the things you don't learn in law school.
Then I agree.
I could actually continue on the same line that Anna already raised, and kind of like, it is not an interesting question, role of lawyers as such, if lawyers talk about it just by themselves. I would be more interested in asking what are the ways how we can improve legal education and make it more interdisciplinary, and how do we form the future lawyers in collaboration with other disciplines. So how do we make the law degree a way of interacting across faculties? And I think that a lot of the initiatives that we are doing at the university right now are actually openings towards that direction. So courses organized together with computer science on algorithmic discrimination, for example, hackathons, one of which we did last autumn, where Minttu was actually one of the judges and Anna one of the mentors, and kind of like having law students already when they're still young and green, kind of like giving them the opportunity to learn to communicate with others before they have that lawyer mindset, and so that they learn how to convey what is important about law, and then being able to also receive from other people what are the insights from there. So I think it's not up to lawyers to decide who we are, but I think it's up to other people to decide if we are needed. And I hope the answer is we are needed.
So I was about to ask about skills that can't be replaced, but maybe you'd like to talk about skills that are lacking at the moment. So I got the vibe that at least Anna finds that lawyers aren't really prepared for the future and the future work and the new demands, especially if we get these robots stealing our junior lawyers' work, which I'm very, thrilled about as a person about to graduate. We students have quite a lot at stake in here. So, so what are the skills that lawyers don't have at the moment?
If I could comment perhaps on that. I would like to think that we as lawyers, we don't need to become coders and we don't need to become designers, because there's a lot to learn in law alone, and especially if you want to be really good at some specific field of law, learning a new profession on side of that, it's quite a mission impossible, I think. So I don't think we as lawyers need to be everything in the future, but perhaps I think it just requires a mindset change that we need help, and we should work with other fields in order to improve our life and our work.
I would comment that basically I think that, like Johanna said previously, that we are really bad at team leading. It's something that we are lacking in this industry, that we have bad bosses and basically horrible culture in some places. That basically, how do we lead teams? How do you lead a team? How are you as a leader? Are you a monster or a human? So that's something it's quite crucial that if you have a team of lawyers or you have a team of experts, it's different to lead if you're working in a factory and you're producing something. If you have a team of experts and every one of them has their personality and the way of working, how do you lead that kind of persons, and especially this next generation? I think that even my generation is a little bit different compared to the students, for example, that I see in the work every day. So basically, when I went to work, like we work like crazy, like all around, like 24/7 all the times. And now I'm seeing that the young lawyers are saying, I'm going home. So there's happening also changes in the industry that more females are coming to law firms. Look into the partner structure. It hasn't changed yet, but hopefully it will. And also the family, like combining together your career and family life, like everything is changing now. And I think that it's crucial that we remember the human aspect, empathy, and the social skills. How do we like interact with each other?
I think that lawyers have somehow forgotten that their clients are humans and that they are humans themselves as well. So I think the human aspect is lacking from the legal field in a lot of ways, actually, which is quite strange if you think about that law. In a way, it deals with solving human problems, but I think the field of law, as a science, perhaps it's void of the human.
Yeah, and also
perspective.
It kind of goes to the hierarchy that the legal profession or the legal industry exists for the sake of those humans, not the other way around. I think that's kind of the big challenge. As for the concrete things that people need to learn, well, design, for instance, that's for instance in Denmark, that's already now taught in elementary schools, which is, I think, basically change the kind of arts, crafts, shop class that to incorporate the design element. Another thing also, of course, how computers work, or kind of conversational familiarity with ICT. Not that everybody needs to be a programmer or anything like that. And kind of a better understanding how the world works, but basics in for instance, project management or management in general. I could do a long list of these, but
yeah, just a quick side note. When Nea was talking about Monster and 24/7 working days, she was not talking about Fondia.
It is clear here.
And then just about the project management thing, I think what we should understand as lawyers, and again borrowing from my imaginary boyfriend/father, Saskind, we need to understand that we traditionally think that when we get a legal assignment, it's kind of a bulk of things that needs to be done in one place, that the lawyers do everything around it. But that's not actually true. You could chop it into pieces. You could outsource the project managing part, and maybe you should do that because we are really crappy project managers. Or then we are also, as we have just proven to you, not very good public speakers. So that might also be a sector that you want to outsource to someone else. But this is something, if we want to have these tasks to ourselves as lawyers, we really need to improve with those and kind of realize that there might be some companies entering our field, disrupting the industry by taking these separate tasks from the kind of the chain of, from the assignment. Or then, on the other hand, it might not be such a bad thing. Maybe we should let somebody else talk about law because we're not obviously very good at it.
Yeah, I think the big challenge with outsourcing is that, for instance, Finland is too small a market for volume advantages. And if, for instance, a lawyer doing or an outsourced legal service provider needs to be able to speak Finnish, then you basically have Finland and Estonia as potential labor markets for that.
That's also true.
But for concrete skills that would be needed, I see a lot of lawyer bashing happening here. It seems like it's something we lawyers, we love it. We love bashing and telling how bad lawyers are and how bad law is. I think the most important thing is that we understand what legal education is for and what are the skills that lawyers are needed for. And I think it's obvious that some of those skills are changing, but not all. So I get asked a lot, what should we be teaching at the law faculty actually? And And my answer is really simple. What about if we teach our students like critical thinking? And I think that is the most important thing that we need to teach them. And what are the components of that? I would highlight two things. First of them is curiosity towards new things. And the other thing is not being that afraid of taking risks and failing. And that's something that deals with the lawyer mentality very closely.
But one thing I have to comment and criticize is the new system that is now like happening in the law schools. That when I was studying, we all were also working, and I think that's a very important combination. You have the possibility to see the real life, and then you have the studies. And I think that now with the current schedule, you're only able to attend the classes. And I think that then you're missing one part, because real life is so much complex than just basic courses of certain like fields of law. So I think that that would be like better to have courses that basically the business life and the reality would interact with the courses.
I think this is actually a question for our moderator, Sonia.
Yeah, let's not talk about legal education. It must be very boring for everyone who's not doing it currently. So can we talk about inclusiveness? This came up in multiple presentations before, and it's the International Women's Day today, as mentioned previously. And as we've been talking about the tech industry and tech perspective in general, we all know that the technology industry does have a well-documented diversity problem, and also women's gains in law have also taken time. They really took a while, and they're still happening. It was mentioned that women don't make partners as often as men do, even though you have more women coming to law schools than you have men. So you also already mentioned ways to make the working life more inclusive, but why does it matter from the tech perspective? Does inclusiveness make better lawyers? Will we have more perspective if we have more different kinds of people? Or are lawyers just the same? Or are they similar people from each other? Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think kind of legal education, to get back to that subject, builds on, sorry, there's this mindset, I think it's particularly in Finland, that lawyers are sort of these impersonal, neutral, blah, blah, blah things. Well, not particularly in Finland, I think it's universal, and there's kind of the notion that you can separate yourself from who you are, and that's patently untrue. So obviously everybody comes to the table with their own background, their own experience, their own baggage, what have you, and kind of it's obvious that when you have people from different backgrounds, then you have different ideas meeting and something better hopefully emerging out of that. An interesting statistic, before this I just counted the authors for papers at the International Conference for Artificial Intelligence and Law, a thing that has been going on since the 80s, and about 30% of the authors were women, which is, I think, pretty good by computer science standards.
Absolutely. I was thinking that diversity as such, when there's been research done that what are high-performing teams or which teams do well, they've understood that actually diversity as such is not the thing that makes teams, for example, perform very well. This is, for example, coming from Google. It's actually if the diversity makes the communication and the cooperation and the dialogue and the inclusiveness of the team better, then it adds value. And I think this is the key. And I've been now talking a lot with my clients, also with our people, about social safety. That when you are able to have a socially safe environment where people work, that is when you get the best out of people. And that's also when you get the best out of the diversity. And so with social safety, I don't know if you know the term, but it's really, basically the opposite of it is the fear that I get embarrassed in my social circumstances. So I say something that is not relevant and you will think something of me, etc. And that's actually quite delimiting in the work life of many. I would say that it's delimiting all of workspace and probably also school, everything.
I would like to comment on that, and also what Riikka said about teaching law students to be less or more fearless and not be afraid of taking risks. Because, I mean, it's a while ago I was in law school, but I think that we, as lawyers and law students, we pretty much think that, you know, there are winners and there are losers, and we are afraid of being wrong.
But the lawyers always win.
Yeah, well, basically that's true as well. But I think that there is this weird mentality that you cannot show that you're wrong, that you don't know an answer to a question. I mean,
isn't that awful?
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible actually, and I think that's one of the things that actually are slowing down the development of the legal field and law firms, because I mean, if you're afraid of being wrong, how could you ever like make anything better? I mean, you'll only have to focus on something that you know, on existing ways of working, because developing things always involves failing and failing again.
So if the lack of failure is holding people back, should we get more opportunities to fail? Should we get to practice how to fail? And how do you combine that with the need to win, which comes with like the actual work? So where do you fail, or how do you practice it?
Opportunities to fail, you get every moment, trust me. So, and embrace those moments. That's the only thing I guess I could say to that. But I think it's. You were saying that there is a lot of jokes going around about lawyers. I have to say, maybe there is also that you are quite critical towards yourself. If you are critical towards the world, but at least in this room, ladies, stop it now, because it has a huge impact on how you see yourself and the world. So that would be one thing if you take away.
On the other hand, as a hypothetical client, embrace failure all you want, just don't do it on my time.
Okay, excellent. So now we're going to have a couple of statements or a quick round. So that's why I got to do some arts and crafts here. You have 3 different papers. You have green for yes, red for no, and then this very unhip shrug smiley that I got to draw. We tried to find pictures of cats, but the internet failed us, so that's why this signifies I don't know, or I don't want to say, or this question is stupid if you want to say. Okay, great. There's going to be 4 of them. So first of all, technology will bring more jobs than it will take away. Just bravely. Yes, it's the wrong way around, but this was
intentionally.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Then the next one. A lawyer of the future should know how to code. A lawyer of the future should know how to code. Okay. Another question. Laws should be written so that even coders can understand them.
What was that?
Laws should be written so that even coders could understand them. This is very brave from Anna. Okay, and the last one. I would rather be judged by a robot judge than a human judge. Everyone's very ambiguous towards robots, but I have to say there was the picture of Wall-E. So if you have seen the movie, maybe that's a good judge to judge you, and not a scary robot per se. So thank you everyone at the panel. Thank you audience. If you have any questions, we have the funny mic box if someone wants to speak on a box. Anyone? It was quite fun apparently to speak on this.
I would like to throw. But of course, if you don't brave yourself enough to ask questions now, I guess most of us, all of us, are staying for cocktails and finger food. So perhaps after a glass of bubbles, you feel braver to take the risk of asking something.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Okay, thank you everyone, and special thanks to all our speakers and panelists today, and of course Fondia and Dottir, who sponsored this event, and then Legal Tech Lab, who has been welcoming us here in Tiedekulma, which is a fantastic place. And now after the presentations, we're going to go to that corner. We have some snacks and wine waiting for us. And before you go, I would like to give you a rose and little gift as a thank you from us. But let's give our massive applause, and please stand up for it.
I would like to thank. It's your speech now.